So I had to swallow a hard truth recently. The hard truth is my Chinese sucks. So I learned Chinese for over 5, 6 years and I haven't actually used it in the last 5 years. This is a big problem because now I face language regression and I found that my language skills are really terrible now in Chinese. I'll share a story with you about what happened to me and why I had this realization. But it's really annoying, and this news is a little bit shocking for me because when you hear about language regression, you don't really believe it at first, to think that you are just going to lose your language skills if you don't use them. But I'm here to tell you today that you absolutely do, and I have experienced it myself firsthand. So I went into a shop the other day and there was a Chinese man and he couldn't speak English, so I wanted to try and speak to him in Chinese. So I was just trying to make some small talk and I just asked him some simple questions like, how long have you been here? Which neighborhood are you in? Like these types of really simple questions. And he then asked me in return, how long have you been in this country for? And I couldn't even say the amount of days, like the time, the most simple stuff that you learn, especially when you start learning a language, about time, number of days, how long you've been somewhere. And I got really frustrated in this moment, and I realized, wow, I have experienced language regression. And because I haven't spoken that language for over 5 years, it just means that my brain hasn't had any stimulus or any input that's sent a signal to my brain to hold on to that language. So I want to explain today why it happened, how it happened, and what are some ways that you can avoid it. So just to give you some context, I started learning Chinese about 7 or 8 years ago, and I learned for around 3 to 4 hours. My level was HSK4, which for a British guy to reach that level in Chinese, it usually takes around 3 to 4 years. But of course, this depends on how many hours you spend each day. So let's assume that I was spending 5 hours per week, which is just under 45 minutes a day. I reached this level, HSK4. But then because I haven't actively studied it, I haven't even passively been studying it, my language level has just gone from a level I was confident with and happy with and proud of, all the way down to just crashed and burned. And yes, it's a terrible level now. I have still a lot of passive knowledge. As you may know, your passive knowledge remains, so you still have a good amount of knowledge and understanding of lots of words. But when it comes to actually speaking and the active use, it's terrible. The recall from your mind to actually think of the vocabulary, the pronunciation, the grammatical structure of what you need to say is so limited because our bodies and our minds, they are super good at conserving energy. And one of the biggest things that take up a lot of energy is storage. So storage in our minds. So things that we don't need to use anymore, the brain is really good at making those neurons less strong and weakening them, and they start to deteriorate so that it can make more space for new stuff that you need to learn more actively. After we finish school, we always use this saying that what we learned in school was useless because we forget it after a year, which of course you do, because a lot of what you learn is passive, it's short term, and you are typically using passive learning strategies such as memorization, flashcards, and these all go into your short-term memory, and these are not good productive strategies for long-term memory. So this is really frustrating and annoying for all language learners. And I think a lot of people on YouTube, they will talk about how they are polyglots and they speak all of these languages, but I don't think enough people are actually speaking about that if you don't use these languages, you lose them. If you are not investing your time, then you're not going to be getting better. And this is something that's really important to understand as a learner, is you need to be really actively focusing and learning. And because language regression happens, and this sucks, this is annoying, this is really frustrating. On the other hand, the good news is that you have the opposite effect when you study every day, when you are active every day, when you find a sustainable way to develop your skills as a language learner. You get the compound effect. So the compound effect, every day you get that stimulus, you're sending a message to your brain that says grow. that this is important, that this is something that you want. So your skills are going to get better and better. But if you don't use them and you don't practice, they're going to get worse and worse. So that's why I think, you know, to be a polyglot is not actually a goal that anyone should have, because it's just not possible to maintain all of those languages at the same time. You're going to have one primary language that you're going to use every single day. Then you're going to have your secondary language, which you're going to use for work. And maybe you have some other family members that you can speak with in that language. But other than that, what is the purpose of being a polyglot and speaking these other languages? I think that actually those other languages that polyglots say that they speak is definitely not to a high standard. It's not to a high level, because the brain actually cannot store that those amount of languages and that amount of connections to a level that is so high that you are able to just switch, you know, between either one. So I think, you know, you could say, you know, some languages are very similar. So it's easy then to say, okay, I speak 3 or 4 languages. If the 4 languages are super similar, you know, take for example Spanish and Catalan, you know, it of course is a great effort to develop those skills, to learn that language, that acquire that language, but is so much quicker than learning a completely different language system, whether it's from English to Spanish or Spanish to German, or German to Chinese, you know. So it's completely different. And not to discredit anyone that learns the language that is quicker, but it's just that you need to think about your time, the time that you're spending, because time is always the problem. You don't have enough time to study 20 languages, and there's no purpose to that. It's better to just pick one and go deep and be consistent and learn it sustainably and continue and stick with it until you reach C2. That is what I think is a better approach and a better way to do it. So language regression, it happens because we don't actively use that language, and the speed of regression is what's really interesting. So within the first 0 to 3 months, you will start to lose your ability to actually retrieve vocabulary. So let's say you're not studying at all, not passively or not actively, the first thing that you'll notice that your brain is much slower at retrieving words. That's within 3 months. Crazy. Within 1 year, there's going to be super noticeable deterioration of your language skill, and this is going to be seen in grammatical structures that you forget, pronunciation that you forget, definitely range of vocabulary as well. This is just going to get worse and worse, and it's gonna, it's quite shocking at how efficient the brain is at actually, making you forget this language because it's not keeping these neurons as a priority. And then within 1 to 3 years, again, just that compound effect of deterioration and weakening. And then 3 to 5 is a tremendous, like, fall off a cliff standard of your language level. And that's what happened to me. 5 years of not speaking any Chinese, not even passively learning it. The reason for that, by the way, is because I switched to Spanish, and I've been developing my Spanish skill, and I'm very happy with the progress that I'm making in that language so far. So there is one thing that you can do that can help to avoid language deterioration and to avoid the speed at which the deterioration happens, and that is maintenance habits. So once you reach a level that you're happy with, let's assume it's C1 for most people, you need to establish really good maintenance habits. Ideally, you're using it in your day-to-day life, at work, with your family, with your friends, with whoever. It's part of your life. I think as a bilingual person, it needs to somehow be integrated into your life very strongly. And that's how you're gonna be bilingual, and you're gonna stay bilingual, because this is a big thing, right? How do you stay bilingual? I think if you're a polyglot, sure, you can each day change the language, change what you're studying. But I think for me, this sounds, like a waste of time, because I would rather just get really good in one language rather than keep changing language all the time. So I think I think maintenance really truly only can apply to 2 languages. If you're doing it for 3, 4, or 5, then of course it's just a lower standard. You're just overloading your brain, and it can be too much. So the key takeaway that I want for you guys today is to just don't make the same mistake that I did. Maintain your language, implement good habits, think about how this language can become a permanent part of your life, and I think you will be much happier with the progress and you won't have to suffer like I have. So I hope this video is useful, guys. Give it a like, subscribe.